What's going on, drummies? It's Artie here. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a review of the Premier Mace. First of all, I want to make it very clear that I'm not being paid by any of these companies, nor am I being sponsored by any of these companies mentioned today. These are my opinions and my opinions alone. Also, this mace is not mine. I did not purchase it. It's actually on loan to me by one of the bands that I coach. Now, many of you actually know about the Premier Mace. The Premier Mace is actually made by the Premier Drum Company in the United Kingdom. And drum majors here in America might think that that mace looks somewhat familiar. Well, yes. This mace is what the American mace is actually patterned after. Now, in this video today, I'm going to go over the basic construction of the Premier Mace and compare it to the Peacock American mace. I'm going to go over the overall flourishing quality of this mace. I'm going to also compare this mace to its American brother, the Peacock American mace. And later on in the video, I'm going to give you my recommendation whether or not you should use this mace for competition. Now, to give you all a little bit of history regarding this mace was actually created as a low-cost, low-maintenance alternative for drum majors, because we all know that Malacca cane wooden maces can be pretty expensive, and also taking care of a Malacca cane mace requires some work. Because the Malacca cane shaft is made of wood, if not taken care of, the mace has been known to warp over time, which is a common characteristic of wood in general. Then along comes the Premier Mace, made by the Premier Drum Company. Premier is not specifically a drum major company. They specifically make drums, and drum major maces are kind of something that they do as kind of a side project. And these maces on their website are described as ceremonial maces. Now, around the 1970s, 1960s, drum majors in America, specifically in Southern California, who flourished maces on the street, used Premier maces. And then along comes Tom Peacock of the Marching World Company, who took a Premier mace and redesigned it, made it more low cost, more affordable for high school drum majors, and also made it more modular so that it was more affordable and at the same time more available to high school drum majors. However, this mace is still commonly used today by drum majors in Europe, drum majors in Singapore, drum majors all over the world, especially military bands. Bands in the United States, such as the Marine Corps Band, the Air Force Band, and many military bands all over the world use this mace for their drum majors. So the Premier Mace is comprised of an embossed metal head, a fiberglass shaft, and a metal ferrule. The mace is typically wrapped in chains, or sometimes you can get the mace wrapped in a cord, which is provided by Premier. The mace typically will come in two sizes, a 54-inch or a full 60-inch. The Premier Mace comes in one color shaft, and that's black. Each Premier Mace also comes topped off with a St. Edward's crown. One complaint I have with the Premier Mace is that the balance point is kind of awkward on the Premier Mace compared to a standard American mace. For the Premier Mace, the balance point is actually pretty high up on the mace, which makes spinning the mace a little awkward, as compared to the American mace, where the balance point is actually lower on the shaft compared to the Premier Mace. The balance point on the Premier Mace can also make flourishing the mace a little bit awkward. For comparison, here's footage of me spinning the Premier Mace and footage of me spinning the American mace. Now, the Premier Mace kind of has a bad reputation in the Scottish drum majoring community, and also flourishing drum majors in general. Because of its construction, it's not really well made for flourishing or Scottish drum majoring or high tosses in general. Drum majors typically will use this mace because it's a lot more affordable compared to a Malacca cane mace. Also, drum majors all over the world will use this mace because it's more available to them compared to the American mace. Now, why does this mace have a bad reputation? Well, first of all, the fiberglass shaft. Fiberglass, although durable, is not as flexible as natural Malacca wood. Because it lacks the natural flexibility of Malacca cane, over time the fiberglass shaft has been known to snap, which is very common in fiberglass maces. This problem is very typical in high school drum majors, specifically those who use the American mace, and that's understandable. Also, these maces were not really made for high tosses. Because a lot of flourishing Scottish drum majors do very high tosses, there have been stories of the heads of Premier maces shattering when hitting the concrete. Also, since the Premier Drum Company doesn't primarily make maces. Their main focus is drums, which makes it kind of hard to actually acquire spare parts. Usually if you want to get a replacement part, you would have to get in touch with the Premier drum company. Usually if you want to purchase a Premier mace, they can be purchased either through many dealers such as marchingworld.com or other piping and drumming websites. However, if you want to get specifically a replacement part, you would usually have to contact the Premier drum company. Another drawback to the Premier mace is that they only come in two sizes. They only come in a 54-inch and a 60-inch, which is unfortunate because the 60-inch may be too long for some drum majors and the 54-inch may be too short for some drum majors. So you're kind of stuck between picking only between two sizes of maces. In contrast to the American maces where you have the option to shorten it a full 5 inches. So in conclusion, do I recommend the Premier mace? Really, it depends. If you are a flourishing drum major, if you are looking into getting into Scottish games, if you are a drum major that wants to spin a mace, I would not recommend the Premier mace for flourishing. Why? Because there's so many other options you can get for flourishing drum majors. You can get an American mace, you can get a Malacca cane mace, there are so many other options. Now, if you are a regimental style drum major or a military style drum major, and you're not really worried about flourishing, then yes, if you are a ceremonial drum major, this mace would probably be the most cost effective for you. And also, it actually looks pretty nice. And it looks pretty impressive compared to the dull looking American mace, which is just a plain metal head. So that is my review of the Premier mace. Let me know in the comments if you would ever purchase a Premier mace. If you have a Premier mace, do you enjoy it? Would you switch out to a Malacca cane mace? Or maybe if you're a beginner drum major, is this a mace that you currently have and are you happy with it? If you enjoyed this video, leave me a like. If you want to get in touch with me, I am at ArtemacDM on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you guys want to see me do more reviews of drum major related items, let me know. And as always, keep marching and keep flourishing, and I'll catch you guys next time.